Okay, let's take an alternate look at MSNBC's election coverage. I'm going to do my best to choose the clips that did not go viral, but this stream is an absolute gold mine of content.
Shockingly, there were 2 assassination attempts on one of the candidates. There was another blockbuster debate that went so badly for the Republican candidate that he backed out of doing any more.
Come on, like that's a statement of fact. We're off to a good start here.
The campaign ended with one candidate drawing tens of thousands of people to the largest, most rip-roaring rallies she had over the course of her entire campaign, while the other candidate, who throughout his political career has been known for his raucous and huge crowds, at the end of his campaign, he was unable to fill arenas in his final week. It has been a strange...
I mean, is that fair? Remember that Kamala HQ Twitter account? They were trying to sell this all the time as well. Oh, Trump's rallies were fine. He even did a rally in Michigan, and he was about 2 hours late because he was doing the Joe Rogan podcast. There were still a ton of people there waiting for him.
I am so sorry. Here's what they wanted to do. We got so tired up, and I figured you wouldn't mind too much because we're trying to win. And I got interviewed by actually a great guy. I didn't know him too well, but I got to know him because it was the longest interview I've ever done in my life. Joe Rogan, a good guy.
And so MSNBC brings up the rally thing again later in the stream.
And what the campaign is talking about now is the granular get out the vote effort that you just don't see on the other side. On the other side, you're seeing Charlie Kirk, to whom the Trump campaign outsourced the parts of its ground game they didn't give to Elon Musk, going on X Twitter this morning and begging people to vote. So their ground game is to go on Twitter and beg people to vote, or X, whatever they're calling it now, whereas the Harris campaign's ground game is literally multiple taps at each door. They're going back to people, texting, calling, going to the door. Do you need a ride? It's like what Obama did. It's numerous touches on voters who don't vote that often, because that's who this ground game is for.
Well, and the reason we're talking...
The ground game. Even Democrats were making fun of the Democratic ground game following the election.
It's a 50-50 toss-up race. We're sure of it. But the vaunted ground game, it turns out that people knocking on other people's doors doesn't get them to do what you want them to do. As I believe vacuum and Bible salesmen probably have known for many, many centuries.
We were laughing at them and knocking on doors in Philadelphia and Detroit. It's like, there's no Trump people. They're not dropping literature. They're not knocking on doors.
Well, in fact, it was laughing like, oh, Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk, but their PACs don't know what they're doing.
We were making fun of Donald Trump for having thrown away his ground game and doing some weird stuff online. We thought that they were idiots. It turned out we were the idiots. We woke up in a body bag because while we were knocking on doors, they were making these phones into 24-hour-a-day political weapons for themselves. And so we got outflanked, outplayed, outbeat by people who told us the whole time that they knew what they were doing. And people are mad. And future.
That's pretty good awareness actually there from Van Jones.
Well, and also you have to keep in mind that a lot of those undecided voters who are making game time calls want to vote for a winner. And I really think this is unscientific.
Good point, yeah.
But the last week has been a very good close for Kamala Harris, not a good close for Donald Trump. He hasn't been able to fill the rallies. He's addled. He has racist comedians opening it. Whatever. It's been a trashy week for Donald Trump. It's been a very strong week for Kamala Harris. And if you're sitting there in the line thinking, I want to vote for the person who has a W at the end of their name after this is all over, that's a good thing for Kamala
And can
Harris.
I just add that I think
That's mega.
Donald Trump has to win North Carolina in order to be president. If Kamala Harris can pull this off, which I think she can, she will be the next president of the United States. We've seen a lot of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in North Carolina over the last few weeks. They're clearly worried about winning North Carolina.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the state of North Carolina.
I've been hearing a lot of talk about the Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan podcast. In fact, a little while ago, we were talking to 2 guys. One of them said that he was on the fence until he said when Kamala did not go on the Joe Rogan podcast, that was what influenced his vote. He ended up voting for Trump, but he said that he was open to listening to Kamala on the podcast, and when she didn't, again, not necessarily all the issues, but the fact that he said she didn't seem like a real person because she couldn't talk for an extended period of time. So it's just some of the things that we're hearing from some of the...
Look, I've made this point in other videos. I think in the short to medium term, your candidate has to be able to go on multiple long-form podcasts and connect with voters.
But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight.
You know, I would like to issue an apology to all of those states that we have not mentioned. It's not our fault. It's the founding fathers. They decided on this thing called the Electoral College, which, interestingly, no other country in the world decided to copy. And because of that, in presidential terms, in effect, on nights like this, you have a right to think that it feels like no one cares about your vote. If you're in California or if you're in New York. And when you think about how enormous a force that can be.
Look, that is a very misleading framing, I would say. There are many countries in the world with a parliamentary system. It's not a popular vote. If you live in an area in a ton of other countries that just leans one way massively politically, it's essentially the same concept as the Electoral College. It's not the exact same, but there's not like most countries do not have a popular vote. So he's framing this like, oh, America has this unique problem.
In voter suppression, there may be nothing quite like it. Imagine if California voters ever got to think that their votes for president matter. There are 7 million people in California who don't vote. They're registered. They don't vote today. And how many of them would turn out? And oh, by the way, how many more millions would that add to Kamala Harris's total? New York, the state of New York, another 7 million people who don't vote in this presidential election because they know what the outcome is for their state. Most of those, if they...
It's almost meaningless for him to bring this up and only focus on the left-wing states. Because if you combine Texas, Ohio, Tennessee, Trump won Tennessee by 30 points. That's a big state. Indiana and Missouri. He won all those by over 10 points. Kamala won Cali 20, New York around 13. You could do the same thing on the other side and say, oh, these Trump voters who live in very red states, maybe they didn't come out either because they knew Trump was going to win. So, I mean, why do you think people don't trust the media? It's stuff like this. It's incredibly difficult to just take the media. It's probably like inadvisable to take what the media says at face value.
They voted would add millions to Kamala Harris. And this Electoral College problem is one that bedevils us in the 21st century as it never has before.
It's not, I mean, I'd say I think there's probably another layer to it, which is education. And I think when it's all said and done, what you're going to see is a huge divide over people who are college educated and not college educated. And if that is the case,
these liberal networks love to bring this up. You basically cannot go an entire show without hearing, oh, college-educated people love voting Democrat.
What is different is that you could be seeing a realignment about the base of each party. The Democratic Party needs to do a much better job of selling its achievements to working-class voters, and working-class voters also need to be more engaged in understanding the chasm that separates these two parties in terms of policy.
Particularly since one of the candidates is being bankrolled by a billionaire right now.
Exactly.
And can I just say very quickly?
There's no billionaires in the Democratic Party. Give me a break.
And things are starting, I would say, to come into focus because it's later, but we still have not a single swing state called.
One thing I will just say, I'm not trying to be rosy all the time at all, but
at this point in the night, though, Trump was the clear favorite.
This always happens on election nights where the bigger cities where Democrats have the bigger share of the vote come in later. And there are a lot of places, Grand Rapids, Michigan, a bigger chunk of Philly, Dane County in Wisconsin. We don't know what they'll be, but we got to wait and see what they are before anybody starts drinking on their couch or whatever they need to do.
They're already doing that.
They already do. Can I add just one other thing?
Look, let me know in the comments, does anyone else notice these liberal networks make so many references to like election anxiety and drinking? Oh, I need to pop a bottle of wine. I'm going to have some champagne. I'm getting nervous. Better get another drink, get another cocktail. Does anyone else notice that? Every election stream in every cycle, all these references to just like drinking your anxiety away.
You go to the polls with the country that you have, and the country we have lives in two totally separated information ecosystems. Whatever happens, we'll have to really understand the information consumption that young men have and why they think that the economy will be better under Donald Trump when it never was.
Look, just to use a term the media loves using, that's just straight misinformation. It's ridiculous. Look at this chart here of median weekly earnings, real earnings. This is inflation adjusted. Notice, by the way, how flat it's been for so long, relatively flat, barely going up. Look at the Trump term. Here's 2016. It actually is going up to the right in like pretty close to a 45-degree angle for the first time in a long time. Then COVID happens. It's just like such a mess, obviously. But look at the Biden term. Basically flat because there was a lot of inflation. Just visualized in a different way. Real median household income. Again, that's inflation adjusted. Look at Trump's term. The economy was better. It was a good economy, and there was very low inflation. The inflation rate under Biden was about triple. That's why you see relatively flat. Like, yes, stock market went up, wages went up under Biden, but inflation went up at roughly the same rate. So that's why you don't see much real median growth in the salaries, and that's what's more important to focus on. How is the average person doing in an economy? They talk about the stock market here in a second. Yeah, the stock market did great under Trump and it did great under Biden, but the stock market matters to everybody, but it matters way more to the top 10% of people in terms of earnings.
Either direction. And so I think it's going to be a late night. And I think it's the polls. I mean, I guess a slice of good news that the polls have accurately captured this dead heat.
Ari, since you were...
That's not true in the election. It was not particularly close. And it's not even true at this point in the night. At this point in the night, it was not very close. Trump was a clear favorite.
An email to campaign staff that was sent out by the campaign manager for Kamala Harris, Jen O'Malley Dillon.
So again, they read an email that they got from the Kamala campaign. Again, at this point in the night, if you were just watching MSNBC and not checking social media, you would think the race is a lot closer than it actually is. Some people criticize these networks of artificially trying to manufacture a close election so they get better ratings. I don't know.
I'm just going to tell you what we got. Quote, while we continue to see data trickle in from the Sunbelt states, we have known all along that our clearest path to 270 electoral votes lies through the blue wall states. And we feel good about what we're seeing. Again, this is an email from the Harris campaign manager. The United States economy is the envy of the world.
Yeah, it absolutely
That the only reason there's a positive economic outlook globally is because the United States economy is doing so well, it's dragging everybody else upward. It's the best job.
She's actually correct in that. It's just so much of that is concentrated at the top and so much is concentrated in large American tech companies. So yes, NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft are doing fantastic. They're the biggest companies, some of the biggest companies in the entire world. Again, as I said, I think a better way to measure the economy, especially in the context of voting, how is the middle doing? The people, like the median worker, was doing better under Trump. So yes, total GDP under both Trump and Biden went up. I mean, so did debt, U.S. debt growth, which is bad, but U.S. GDP total did pretty good. The stock market did very good. It's just the stock market matters the most to wealthy people.
Job market in the history of the United States. Inflation is back to where it was, not only just before COVID, but before Donald Trump left office, right? I mean, this is the inflation number.
That's not the total story, though. The inflation for Biden he has a bad record on inflation, and with high inflation, it doesn't go away. You'd have to have deflation. It's like if you gain 20 pounds, then you only gain 2 pounds, you're still up 22 pounds. And for a bunch of reasons, government central banks really try to avoid deflation. But another thing, because of the inflation, interest rates had to come up. So you have inflation and you have higher interest rates, which make getting a mortgage, getting a house more expensive.
Numbers, the economic growth numbers, the fiscal numbers, the U.S. standing in the world numbers are all off the charts positive. Even the freaking stock market, right? All off the charts positive. And yet, The pain, the old pain from having gone through the rise in prices, which is over and which we weathered better than every.
Again, that's not accurate. It's not over. The high prices do not go away.
Other advanced economy in the world. To me, it can't be prescriptive because of what's happened since, because we voted today, or we voted in this early voting period, right? I mean, if we were a country where all the economic indicators were going down, you would expect it to be a big economically driven change election. But all of our economic indicators are 3 feet high and rising.
And there was nothing else.
They're rising again for people at the top. And this is not like a capitalism, socialism thing. I'm for sure a capitalist. It's just, especially in the context of voting, how is the average person doing? It's almost irrelevant when you're covering a national election when everyone gets a vote to talk about the total. The number at the top only affects like a very small percentage of voters. Democracy, anyone can vote. You got to be considering how's the experience in the economy for, as I said again, the median, the average worker.
And there was nothing else for the Harris campaign to offer or do. They delivered a very strong economy, and they put a plan forth for one going forward. And what Donald Trump has offered is only going to worsen the economy.
And also the polling above the economy.
I mean, no wonder the liberals, left-wing people have just become out of touch. They're just so sold on the idea that the Biden-Kamala economy was so much better than the Trump economy.
Represented to have their voices heard, got districts created in Alabama, in Louisiana, and now and they're called black opportunity districts, majority black districts, and now there's more representation. These are the seats that are going to make Hakeem Jeffries the first black Speaker of the House.
Back now with major breaking news and a race call to announce this evening. Decision Desk HQ can now project that Republicans will keep control of the House of Representatives.
Okay, so this is the point of the night when the member of Kamala's campaign said Kamala would not be speaking.
That every voice has spoken, so you won't hear from the vice president tonight.
She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swifties, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
And not the running mate and not the campaign manager.
Let me interject for a moment. We do have a call. NBC News can project that in the presidential race in New Mexico, there is a winner, and the winner is Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. When the Trump campaign was getting very, very, very cocky about how they were going to do tonight, they started talking about expanding the map, expanding to Virginia, which they lost tonight to Kamala.
I mean, the Trump campaign was very correct in being confident.
Harris, they talked about expanding the map to New Mexico, where they sent Donald Trump in the closing days. Now NBC News projects they have lost New Mexico to Kamala Harris as well.
Oh no, Trump lost 2 states. He absolutely did not need to win. I think that's so funny. Oh, the Trump campaign was getting so cocky.
You think about the way that the U.S. is sort of a reserve currency for the world, and the rest of the world counts on political stability here to help to create political and financial stability globally.
Okay, so I already talked about economics in this video, so I'll make this very brief. But you talk about stability, U.S. reserve currency. A massive risk is just how much the U.S. national debt continues to soar. It's going up somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion every 100 days. You see this clock here, over 35 trillion. The live amount is actually over 36 trillion. At least Donald Trump, more so than Kamala, was talking about government efficiency through Elon Musk and Department of Government Efficiency. That cannot continue. That number cannot keep going up, or the interest payments will just eventually be so high that you cannot fund the rest of the government. Here's Warren Buffett famous clip on how he would deal with something like this.
Take this head on. I could end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. Yeah. Now you've got the incentives in the right place, right?
NBC News has a projection to make in the presidential contest in the swing state of Pennsylvania. NBC News now projects that presidential contest has been won by Donald Trump.
This was not a ground game situation. This was nothing to do with Kamala Harris's campaign, which was, again, flawlessly run in 100 days.
I mean, I just say to Donald Trump and the people around him, good luck having Bobby Kennedy as your HHS secretary, an anti-vaxxer running the country 3 years after a dead...
Some people have such an emotional response to RFK Jr. The status quo in healthcare is not working. It's so expensive. So many people have chronic disease.
...pandemic that created mass death that you, Donald Trump, grossly mismanaged. Good luck doubling down on fossil fuels and a fossil fuel economy at the precise moment that the Earth is heating up to historic proportions and monster storms supercharged by climate change are laying waste to red states. Side note, Democrats...
How can you prove, like, any one hurricane is because of climate change?
...cannot control the weather. And good luck to you, sir, with your sales tax that's going to raise taxes, a tariff that's going to raise taxes on middle and working class income Americans. Good luck to you with all of it. It feels like the dog that caught the car.
The tariffs, by the way, were not in the speech. I don't think he's going to do those tariffs. I don't think that's going to happen.
He is Ask China, Mexico, or Canada. I mean, he technically hasn't done them yet. He's not in there, but he seems serious about some of them.
And I think we have to look at also sort of the level of disinformation, misinformation that people are getting and what that looks like.
But you have Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, X, who is a disinformation propagandist and now has a direct, could potentially...
I mean, it's so incredible how the Democrats pushed Elon away. He was a guy publicly, he said he waited in line to shake hands with Obama. I believe he was a person that, for the most part, voted Democrat. They just pushed him away. Anyone that's not 100% with the program of the Democrats, you just go over there. You stink. It's incredible. I wonder if the Democrats are going to, moderate at all on this.
You know, Clinton in 16, Biden in 20, or Kamala in 24. In each of those instances, particularly white suburban women had a different agenda.
Non-college educated.
Non-college educated had a different agenda.
The way a lot of these people talk about this college degree and voting Democrat, you would think that as soon as you get handed this diploma for college, you're just going to vote Democrat for the rest of your life.
Harris did this thing where she was just traveling all the time and doing tons and tons of rallies, more than he was, and she still couldn't.
I don't know where they're getting their information that Harris was doing more rallies or that her rallies were so much bigger and better than Trump's. Just into Google here. Who had more rallies, Kamala or Trump? How Trump out-campaigned Harris, their rallies. And there are some mentions that there are empty seats in Trump's final days. I mean, I don't know, I guess. I guess you could find pictures of that. That's, understandable. ABC, Trump is holding more campaign events than Harris. I don't see any reference here that Kamala is outpacing Trump in the amount of rallies or even in the rally size. I mean, I don't see that here. There's comparisons, and then if you ask this into Grok, who had more rallies, Kamala or Trump? Based on the information available, Donald Trump appears to have held more rallies than Kamala Harris. Trump held 33% more campaign events, according to this blurb in Grok at least. Another report indicates Trump conducted 50% more events in the battleground states compared to Harris. So I don't know where they're getting this information that, one, Kamala's events were so much bigger and better, or number two, that Kamala was doing more events than Trump. I don't understand where that is coming from.
Tell me, what do you want to hear from her?
I think she has an opportunity here to talk to my daughter and your daughter and Tim's daughter and say, look, this was a setback for girls and for women and for feminists and for people who just believe that women should be able to do jobs that men can do. Mm-hmm. And it really hurt. And I think a lot of us feel like it hurts to see that our country is no thank you to a women leader twice. But I also think that...
Was Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau watching this election coverage?
No, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist.
I do think that we have to reckon with the deeper forces that play a role
what role does misogyny play? What role does still existing racism or bias play? It seems like these days we almost don't want to ask those questions as much. And I think that's part of the problem that allows somebody like Donald Trump to get elected.
No, we have to ask the question.
Give me a break, man. That is laughable. That's why Donald Trump got in? Because you're hesitant to talk about misogyny and racism? Have you been paying attention at all in the last 10 years? Okay, we're nearing the end of the video. Here they are officially announcing that Donald Trump will be president-elect, and they do so, as you'll see, in a very measured and balanced way.
And he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before.
Okay, one more clip, and one could argue that we're saving the best for last. Check this out.
You said it best. We are at a moment where we're going to be digesting this for a while. The headwinds she faced are real, right? When I think about the right track, wrong track numbers, she couldn't overcome that. When I think about the economic anxiety that people around the country feel, she couldn't overcome that. But I also have a question about the role that race and gender played in these results.
Here we go.
Here are the facts. If we would pull back the layers. She is a person of color, she is a she, and she is in an interracial marriage. And I wonder, I have this question mark in my mind over whether all of those things combined was too much for pockets of this country. And it is a stunning, this says more about who we are as a country and this moment, that this overqualified African-American mixed-race woman did not win this race, and she lost it to a man who was a felon, who tried to overturn...
I mean, am I watching election coverage, or is this guy auditioning for a Hollywood movie? The eyes, the pupils dilating, the stare. He looks like he's auditioning for a movie. If you're sitting around that table... Are you kind of like sitting back thinking that this guy's going to, like, for the camera, flip the table over? I mean, he looks like he's trying to be the next Robert De Niro or something.
The will of voters in a free or fair election. You talked about the House. I think that is going to be the next line of defense.
CNN can now project that Republicans will hold on to control of the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I'm not confident, though. I suspect and I hope that Hakeem Jeffries is elected by his peers to be the leader of Democrats. But they're going to have a conversation about this.
So I'll finish the video there. Thank you very much for watching. Shout out to MSNBC. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.